Hello and welcome to another episode of Tales from a Professional Nerd. My name is Bryan Steele and I will be your nerd today. And every other day that we do this funny little show, or you watch any of my other social media stuff on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or whatever. Okay, so I want to apologize in advance that there is still seemingly something wrong with the timing of my microphone and my video just slightly. I can't seem to get the mix quite right within the computer system. I need to figure out what that is, but hopefully that's not going to put you off on watching the video because I got some cool stuff to show for you today. All right, let's do the week in Bryan as always. Before we get into the topic of today, the meaty topic of today. All right, so let's see. Work has been great. I haven't really had a lot of chance to work on the Shadowrun novel in the last couple weeks because I've been ramping up on stuff with Renegade and Power Rangers / Transformers / G.I. Joe. We've been kind of coming to some pretty big elements in the game in the three core books that need ironing, so to speak. So there's been a lot of focus on that, and I've been pushing very hard into the first adventure series book for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which I can't really talk a lot about that right now, but it's gonna be so cool. And did a bunch of stat refreshing and specialist juggling for Warzone Eternal. I know we are getting closer to I hope, closer to like the last round of playtesting before we really kind of start getting ready for the big deal, the Kickstarter. I know Alex. I know I'm getting antsy, and I know the players are getting antsy, and I know Alex wants to make sure that everything is set and ready to go. Tom Mason has been a godsend on the miniature side of things. If you follow Warzone Eternal, Tom Mason is an amazing sculptor. He's worked for lots of different companies before, most notably the Mercs company, or for the Mercs miniature game. And Tom and I go way back, 20 plus years. So when I heard that he was coming on board to be our kind of miniature liaison for the design aspect of things, I was ecstatic. I was over the moon. So knowing that he is on the job and kicking ass, getting the Warzone Eternal stuff to the point where we will hopefully be able to show people models, show people some previews and things, and then eventually get us ready for the Kickstarter. I'm ecstatic. I can't wait. And knowing that rule set is just getting tighter and tighter, and the idea, the concept, even the marketability of the game itself, like what we're trying to sell players as, this is a solid army, this is what you should start with, this is where you may want to go in the future, as like kind of a common footprint, I think is even getting more refined and more toned in the way that this game, we don't want this game to turn into a, well, where people shy away from it because it costs too much to get into, or where someone sets themselves up and says, well, I bought my 5 models, I don't need anything else. Like you want that nice middle ground of, I can buy what I want within a general scope to make a cool force, but I have reason to want to buy more and get it to a kind of a malleable state where I can sit down and play. I can choose to use these models, or these models are a mix of these, and most importantly, that you'll want to. That it isn't just well, I've got these models because I'm a completionist and I never field them. We want you to have a reason to field just about anything that runs on the list, because that's the whole point of this game, is to see these cool things on the table and come to fruition. So that's something that's cool that's been going on. I did get, if you watched last week's episode, and I had mentioned that the old Curse of Empire books were they weren't in time for the last thing. They came like 3 days after we recorded. But I've got those here. We got the Darkhoon source book, the Knight source book, and the Warrior Priest source book. I love that art. That Warrior Priest, she's so rad. All those runes cut into her like hairline. So rad. But I wanted to say that stuff did come in, and I'm sure in the future we'll probably do another Cursed Empires update, and maybe I'll walk you through some of the cool stuff that happens in those books. Maybe we'll have a reading with Bryan moment, and we'll just chat about. I'll read a story, ASMR gamer style. I don't know. But that's pretty much work-wise. I finished up a commission, picked up a pretty sizable new commission. I even had a chance to paint a few things for myself because they had matching palettes, so I was able to sneak Cad Bane for my my Star Wars Legion army in there. Painted a sneak surprise for my D&D game, for one of my D&D games, which I'm not going to say because I know some of them watch this. And then got back into setting up for my next big commission, which I've got some cool stuff coming from one of my clients. Can't wait to get that stuff started. And then gaming wise, been playing a lot of video games just because it's an easy way to unwind at the end of the day by myself. Quarantine. But I did get a chance to play in not only the Curse of Strahd game, where I'm playing one of the Kaleidoscopic Paladins. We actually feel like we're making headway. We're making a lot of really silly decisions, and not silly as in like dumb, like for no reason. We're just really there's a lot of jumping to conclusions, and there's a lot of us, we'll start a plan, and then as soon as the plan begins to kind of go into motion, it all falls apart, and we all just kind of go crazy. We have a wild magic barbarian, or a wild arcane barbarian, or touched by wild magic barbarian, who really does get us into a lot of trouble. Normally a big part of the planning for an ambush, or the planning for setting up into a fight, is deciding what to do with him and knowing that it's probably going to be something different. But I think our group has turned a corner where we're starting to work together a little better as characters. And more importantly, we've reached a level point now where, although the combats are really tough, I don't feel like we are just going to get slaughtered every time we walk into a fight. Because for a while there, really did feel that way. In my Friday night game, where I'm the Capoeira Cat Monk, we fought a ship full of mimics, which was awesome, because we were sailing from one side of a sea to the other, and we got over to the other side of the sea. We found this town that is super creepy. Stepford wife. Everyone is happy here. It's very weird. It's a weird place. Our characters collectively do not want to spend any time there if we can help it. And we're not drinking the water. We're not eating any food for anyone that offers us. We're all eating dry rations in a town, because we just don't even want to mess with what could happen if you catch whatever they've got. It sounds like when we play next, when we play this weekend, we are having to do some overland travel to this place where we're meeting somebody important, escorting someone from our boat to this place. Hopefully this will reveal to us kind of part of the big plot, because one of the things that collectively we've noticed in this game is, we're moving from combat situation to combat situation, and we're trying to learn what's going on in between. But it is it's decidedly harder to really pick up a solid clue and trust it. So hopefully, maybe this meeting will reveal kind of a larger plot to the game, and we'll have a little more driving force to do something other than just do odd jobs and make money. Because that's kind of where we're at right now. We're just almost sort of like adventurers in a video game grinding to get XP and magic items, which there's nothing wrong with that style of game. And knowing that there is a plot available is a benefit. Like we're trying to find it, we're trying to get there, or at least some of us are. But it just until that takes hold, it is a little. We are. I mean, we're having fun, which is the whole point of gaming. But it is a little grindy when it comes to getting to where we're going. And then I also got to play this last week. I got to play my family D&D game. I got to run a short. It was a short session because we had to do some rescheduling and some hopping around based off of the kids' school schedules and stuff. But what was cool is I got to introduce an NPC that I've wanted to bring on board for a little while now. He is a representative of the Witch Hunters Union, and has inducted them all into as deputy witch hunters to go out and find the source of this evil, and he's the stereotypical witch hunter. He's the I'm looking for stillborn babies and root vegetables that go sour in the ground, and milk that curdles from out of the goat, that sort of thing. And he's looking for the corruption in people, and very old Victorian style dream elf who is all about trying to stamp out the evil influence that witches and undead and all of the nefarious things have upon the world. He's I think that he's kind of pointed out enough of his own weirdisms to the party that they know sometimes what he's saying is not to be taken at completely face value. It's kind of like you're listening to someone tell a bit of a tall tale. Yeah, it might be rooted in fact or rooted in truth, but for the most part, what you're getting is is exactly that, a tall tale, or at least a hyperbolic version of it. The one downfall we did have in the game session, though, is that we learned is playing after school, playing on a weeknight, for the kids is very hard. Because they've been doing school stuff all day. They don't get a whole lot of chance to play video games or anything to kind of wind down. And then we're like, all right, sit down, try and pay attention to plot and play the game. It was very hard to rein them in. They were in rare form that particular night. And we discussed it afterwards. I am hoping for one, that it is also not a sign that they are not enjoying themselves. Because again, that's of all my players, whether they're 10, 12, or 50, I want to make sure that everyone's having a good time and that we're not forcing you to do something that you don't want to do. And so I think if that pattern continues, if the pattern continues of just disruptive tomfoolery and not listening and just crazy, oh, we're listening to the plot about the ultimate evil in this world. Can I wear your hat? What? No, this guy's telling you what the evil that's unleashed upon the planet, and you're asking to wear his clothing. Okay, we're walking down the street. I want to jump on a roof. Why? 'Cause I can. It's if that kind of stuff persists, it's normally a sign that they are bored of trying to listen to a plot, and they really just kind of want to punch and kick things. Which again, I can run that kind of game, but I don't want to punish the other players at the table, the adult players, and basically say, okay, well, you're just going to play a hack and slash game where you go from one combat to the next. So we'll see. We'll see. We still had a good time. It was just unfortunately short, and because of all the disruptions, we did not get as far as I wanted to. That they're about ready to turn the corner on a big plot point, and I'm hoping that maybe the next time we get a chance to play, we'll get there. But other than that, let's see. Those are the I think the only things that I played or ran this week. Yeah. Now this upcoming weekend, I have at least one game of 40k with one of my friends who has gotten his rounds of vaccinations. And we're obviously going to stay, the 6 feet apart while we're as close as we can while we're playing, but not going to grab each other's dice or lick each other's models or anything like that. But it sounds like we're going to have 2 cool things happen this week, and we're probably going to try our first small game of Conquest, The Last Argument of Kings, see how that goes, see how we like it. And I really want to get a game of 40k in with my Squat Stronghold Fleets Codex. You'll note, because you saw the entry page to this chapter, or to this episode, of what today's episode is about. And I've mentioned it before, is so when one of you fabulous viewers bought me a 3D printer, you had no idea what you did. you uncorked this craziness. I have been working on, so this is actually just the rules. Now, mind you, it's one-sided, so it's not a double-sided folder or anything. These are just the rules section of the 40k Codex. It is not the lore. I am still working on putting together the lore to make this a complete file with descriptions and everything in there. But writing lore takes away from writing work, and I need to pay my bills, so haven't done a lot of that yet. But this started late last year. I was just sitting around the living room with my laptop, and we were talking about Necromunda and the fact that there are a couple of squats in Necromunda. That there's a squat armorer and there's a squat bounty hunter, and their existence for the longest time. If you're not into 40k, Warhammer 40,000, if you're not into it, if you're not into the history of it, and you're not into seeing this kind of fan codex that I've built, I'll see you next week, because that's what the rest of this is going to be. If you are into 40k, then please stick around, listen to what I got to say, and help me achieve my goal. Now, my original goal was to try and get this in front of Games Workshop. I was trying to get them to... My nose itches. Sorry, guys. Was trying to get this in front of someone at Games Workshop, to have them look at this and go, oh, it's brilliant, what a great story, what a great... the pipe dream of any 40k player. I happen to have a slight edge because I'm a professional game designer, professional writer, that maybe I could see that dream fulfilled in some fashion. Well, I obviously it is exactly that. It is a pipe dream. I don't foresee ever Games Workshop calling me up and being like, Mr. Steele, we've seen the PDF of your squats, and we think it's a good idea. We'd like to run with it. What I expect will happen is this will become something that me and my friends use, some select 40k groups out there that I've shared it with, some playtesters that I've shared it with. I expect this will become something that in conversational circles might come up when someone says, "Hey, have you seen that ninth edition? You know, that professional looking ninth edition squat codex by that Bryan guy." That's what I want. Is I don't want any giant money or a huge salary for it or any kind of kickback. I honestly just want to bring squats back to the universe because I think that they have a place. I think that fresh blood in the universe that's not more Imperial stuff, but kind of Imperial askew, almost like the Imperial version of Xenos, because that's really what squats are. Is they were kind of like Xenos Imperial Guard, sort of like how Ogrins are. You know, they're a metahuman. They're a different humanoid, but you're not going to find a planet full of Ogrins. Squats are kind of the same way, except you did have planets full of squats. You did have the homeworlds back in the old lore. But I'm going to hit myself. What I want to do with this is I want to play games. I want to have a good time. And I want other people to play games and have a good time. And I would love for someone to... I would love for some of the other YouTube channels to do a just for fun... you have someone like what I'm doing is you use a 3D printer, use proxies from Mantix, Forge Fathers, whatever you got to do, scratch build all your stuff. Just make a fun army to have a good time with your friends, because that's what gaming is all about. Now, as a game designer, I want to make sure that this is as fair and as fun as possible. I don't want someone to see this and go, "Oh, of course his codex is super overpowered." But I also don't want someone to look at this and go, "Why would I ever play this?" I want to find that sweet spot. Right now, it was based very heavily on the Space Marine Imperial, the basic Space Marine army list, so not Primaris Marines, based partially on Necron kind of rules adjustments, and to check for like point balance wise is mostly Imperial Guard, because again a lot of this stuff does sort of match up to the Imperial Guard and AdMech, which we'll get into when we start talking about it. So I'm very confident in its position right now. Like as far as point values and things, I actually think that it's a good list. It's a solid codex that can hold its own. It's not going to get trounced, and barring someone matching it up with like the worst possible counterpoint or whatever, I don't think it's going to necessarily do any major trouncing. Unless, of course, just like any other army, you can rock, paper, scissors anybody, depending on how the army lists work out. I think that it, more than anything, it's extremely flavorful, and I think it's a lot of fun. And what I've been doing, so I've been building this codex for a while, but then one of you wonderful people out there bought me a 3D printer. And I said, I need to learn how to do 3D prints. And what a way to learn how to do 3D printing and adjust models and scale models and take a piece of this and make it bigger, take a piece of that, make it smaller, slice them together, squish them together, then make my squat force using my printer. So what I've done at this point, I've got roughly 2,000 points worth of 3D printed squats. I've got a handful of out-of-print squat models that I've bought from collectors and things, so I do have a sprinkling of original squats in there. And I'm still working on some of the individual units. There are some of the most famous units that I can't find good files for, that aren't that aren't either too big or too small or not enough detail for what I want to do with them. Will I eventually paint these guys? Maybe. I don't know. I doubt it. I think that they're probably just going to be a fun proxy army. I will probably prime them all because I'm tired of looking at the weird. Some are gray, some are blue, some are white, some are brown, depending on which resin I used. But I'm happy, and I'm happy that it's a project that my friends are okay with. I'm not asking to bring it to a tournament. I'm not asking to uh, uh, you know basically walk into a Games Workshop store and go, all right, can I get a game in with these guys? No, they're totally not official. But I would love for this codex to get enough, for lack of a better term, renown as being fun and fair, to be able to be part of like a local store league. Where like all of the people in the store are aware of the codex, aware of its origins, and aware of its power level, and that they're happy to let me play. That's the kind of thing that I really want to see out of this. I would, more than anything, I would love to see like other YouTubers and stuff try and play with this, with their own proxied armies or whatever. I just it is a fun addition to what I think is something that's been missing for the game from a long time. And let's go ahead and just get into it. For those of you who are 40k players that don't remember squats because you haven't been in the game for 30 years, squats were basically space dwarves. For lack of a better term, they were just space dwarf Imperial Guard, and they were known specifically for they had lots of artillery, they had lots of bikes, like motorcycles and like big hog trikes. They had very cool armor called exo armor that was like not quite Terminator armor, because it wasn't quite as advanced as the Adeptus, as the Astartes Terminator armor, but it was still that kind of durable, that kind of powerful. They had a penchant for auto guns and bolt guns. They had a lot of las guns and shotguns too, but there was a lot of bang for your buck in a squat force. Very similar to how orcs are. They've got a lot of basic weapons, but they're not really good at using them. They'd much rather get up and hit you. Squats are kind of the opposite. They're okay in close combat, and the ones that are trained in it are the ones that are like dedicated to it are really good at it. But they would much rather keep you at that like 12 to 24-inch range and just withering amounts of heavy bolter fire. Just shots upon shots upon shots. And unlike a guard army that are just basic everyday guys, the squats are a little tougher. They had like Space Marine level toughness. They still wear the same kind of flak armor that regular guardsmen did. It was flak and carapace armor, nothing special. Excuse me. And a lot of their basic guns were exactly that. They were still basic guns, but they were able to weather that storm longer because they're a little tougher. They also they tended to have higher leadership and more of a old school dwarf stubbornness, where they're just like, nope, I'm not going anywhere. But to trade for all of this is they were a very slow army. I hate to say it, they got little stunty legs. That's why you bought them transports. That's why they were riding around on bikes a lot, is to make up for the fact that on foot they're slow. And it meant that you didn't have the battlefield command of the table. You didn't get to choose when you were charging. More often than not, you just had to stand your ground and get charged. Now, that was the old squats. They also had powerful psychics that called upon basically the spirits of their ancestors to funnel these powerful psychic powers into the world. I firmly believe that the squats were a fantastic contender. I had a small squat army in high school, and then I can't remember if it was between second and third edition or third and fourth edition, the squats were, someone at Games Workshop made the decision to get rid of squats, and it was a shock to a lot of players. Obviously, a shock to squat players because we're like, oh, hey, we don't have any rules for our guys anymore. You know, they're not in the new codex, and we're not getting a new codex. And it was the first real time for some gamers, and definitely for me, that I have ever had a part of my collection be retconned, be eliminated. You know, it wasn't a, oh, they're just not fun to play with anymore, oh, their rules suck. It was, they don't exist anymore. Your army is devoid. It doesn't exist. And what a lot of people did is they just basically used their squats as part of their Imperial Guard army. You know, the bikes and trikes were being used as like Rough Riders. You know, the exo armor guys were being converted into like special ogrins or whatnot. But like when it came down to the armies itself, they just faded. They went away. And I know myself, I sold them at first opportunity with somebody who said that they wanted them. But then, you know, 20 years pass, multiple editions of the game, and at some point they Games Workshop went ahead and said, what happened to the squats is an unnamed arm of one of the hive fleets, Tyranids, came into the homeworlds. And the homeworlds is a small section. There's a tiny, you know what, I am going to go ahead and put up, here is a map of the Imperium, or the 40k Starscape. I'm going to circle the homeworlds so you can see where they are. They're tiny. The squad homeworlds was a small section. So here you go. So yeah, I mean, like it was a itty bitty spot. So it made sense that a large wing of the Tyranids could sweep in, and over the course of several months or years, basically everything you've heard of in the Tyranid book, everything you read about the worlds when they're completely consumed, you know, down to Ripper swarms carpeting the entire planet to leave it a lifeless rock. That's what happened to the squad homeworlds. That was how Games Workshop wrote out the squats, how they redlined them and said they no longer exist. Well, fast forward a whole bunch of years. Every time something new comes out, or there's a rumor of something new comes out, there is always jokes, and there's always players, and there's always people start talking about, you think it's squats? You think squats are back? What if it's squats? You know, and there's always whispers in the darkness, and, you know, there's always jokes and memes, reset the clock, you know, like that stuff happens. But there was still always that desire for space dwarves. You know, they're badasses. Why are they gone forever? And so Necromunda, small game about gangs on a single planet, pops up with a couple of squats, a couple of squat armorers, and a bounty hunter. So not all the squats died. And so what that made me do is that made me think, if, you know, the 40k universe is enormous. It's millions of worlds. Like they've said this. It is millions of worlds. And if the squats were around, if you go and read the squat lore, the squats were around way back when, even back like at the beginning with when the Imperium formed the AdMech on Mars. You know, there were things that the squats helped humans design, you know, or Terrans design when they got it back out into space. And you the original lore of these squats, obviously they're humanoid. They come from a dense gravity. They come from dense gravity worlds, which is why they're squished and squat and compact. But for the most part, these home worlds, Even no matter where they originally came from and whatever originally colonized these homeworlds, now they're squat homeworlds. They belong to this, you know, this species of metahuman, effectively these space dwarves, and their technology has always been good. In some cases, more advanced than that of the Imperium. In some cases, in other cases, they totally just let it. You know, they're like, well, if I've got a bolter, let's just make a bigger bolter. Oh, if I've got a bigger bolter, let's just make a bigger bolter. And if you can't make a bigger bolter, just strap two of them together. You know, that's really kind of some of the squat mentality when it came to some technological advances. But then when you look at things like gravitics, they always had grav blasters, grav cannons, thud guns. You know, like there was a lot of stuff that came out of the squat codexes that were truly advanced, like high end stuff. The graviton gun, the original graviton gun, stasis grenades, stun gas grenades. You know, these are things that the Imperium either has stopped using or either never got to use because they didn't have them in high enough numbers. The squats use them regularly, or used them regularly. And so what it left me to believe is, if the first few homeworlds are being assaulted by Tyranids, I mean, assaulted in the fact that, like, hive ships are hitting their moons, they're launching, you know, variable like spore clouds worth of drop pods full of Ripper swarms and gene stealers, and I mean, they're just slaughtering tens of millions of squats on these planets. That an advanced society like the squats would figure out, or at least maybe have one already in place, an escape clause. You know, because the Tyranids are not going to wipe out all of the homeworlds all at once. They're going to hit those first couple, and then messages are going to get sent, or refugees are going to leave those, rocket away to the other ones, and they're going to go, the Tyranids are coming, and it's going to keep going through the homeworlds until eventually they're in such a state that they're like, you know, pack everything up, let's get the heck out of here. And so, thus begins my part of the lore, is the squats, while their homeworlds were being, you know, ransacked and scoured of life by the Tyranids, they packed up everything they could. They, you know, the squats were known for their gigantic, you know, epic, massive land trains, and the Colossus and the Leviathan. You know, these enormous, super heavy tanks, like just cities on wheels. You know, like these massive things. And I said, if they did that for the ground, what could they do for space? And so I said that as these planets start to get wrecked, the squats put together as many people as they can, as many survivors as they can, as much technology as they can, grab the tanks, roll the Leviathan on here, get them all in, and they take off in these enormous, like, city-sized spacecraft that I call collectively the Stronghold Fleets. And in my lore, the Stronghold Fleets are basically, we know from past lore of the squats, they used what was called neoplasmic drives. Instead of using the warp to, like the Imperium does, where they just dive into the warp and come out some other side and hope that their psychers keep everything together, the neoplasmic drive allowed you to basically just barely punch, kind of like press against the warp, almost like you were surfing on it. And you never got deep enough into it to really like pop the bubble, so you couldn't navigate it, but you also didn't have to worry about demons and things. You just sort of kind of surfed along the edge to make you go unbelievably fast in a particular direction. And what I said in my lore is these neoplasmic drives are, you know, obviously they're capable of faster than light travel. They're capable of moving these enormous ships what they did is that in a state of, you know, we have to save our people, we have to get away from the Tyranids, they basically pointed in a direction and punched it and just and took off out past the rim into unknown space and have been there for a very long time, basically trying to find their way back to the Imperium, back to our part of the galaxy, our part of the universe. Hence why they've been gone for so long, and why the only squats we know are scattered survivors in Imperial in Imperial lands or on Necromunda, or where there are not squat colonies, because they they were never colonizers to begin with. They just had their home worlds, and they were happy with them. Well, now their home worlds are now on the move. Effectively, these stronghold ships is all that's left of the squat people. And so eventually they find their way back to the edge of known space. And this is kind of where my Codex picks up, is the squats have returned. The Stronghold Fleets have reconvened at the edge of known space, and have found that things are very different. There's the Tyranids have been fought to a standstill in several places, but they're also still coming forward. The orcs are still a problem. There's these Necrons have risen up. These beings from beyond the stars, metal creations. Suddenly, that's a threat. So these squats now are back into the known universe, looking for a place to stay. They're trying to. Could they reconquer their home worlds? Sure, but the Tyranids have left them lifeless. They're dead rocks. So basically, what the squats are doing is they are looking for habitable planets to reclaim, to call their own. And unfortunately, because of the state of the 41st millennium, doing that means you're probably going to fight against someone who's there, whether it's the local populace or the Imperio who thinks they own everything, or you find a planet that seems utterly suitable, but you find out it's covered in chaos cultists. Well, I guess we got to get rid of them. That's so the squats are basically now on a dedicated mission to go and find new homeworlds. They're back. They want to find these new homeworlds, but until then, they live on these gigantic city ships, these stronghold ships, these fleets of stronghold ships. And effectively, anytime that you play a game with these squats, it is part of a landing part of a landing assault, of a landing conquest, of a scouting force, and these stronghold fleet ships are so huge. They don't really use landers. They've got a few, but that's just a lot of fuel to pick up back and forth. So they've mastered the basically gravitic. It's called the grav chute, the gravitic chute. It allows them basically to punch through the atmosphere and drop forces in locations using their gravitic. They're almost like a weapon. They have certain things that they use that are similar to drop pods and things, but when it comes to technically how this force is deployed, is they're basically they find a safe location where they can grav shoot everybody down, and then they go to the battle. And in fact, there's actually a handful of units that can be grav shooted down mid game, which effectively is just sort of like any kind of drop pod style, later reserve deployment, those sorts of things. But narratively, it's the stronghold ship basically going and beaming them down, but it's not teleporting. They actually are physically, they land in this, almost like a Faraday cage that, burns up and falls away, and then, they're ready to go. So that's kind of the gist when it comes to the lore of how I envision the fleets to come back. Now, I also noticed that I'm running real long. This might get a part 2. I might do part 2 next week. So I'm gonna kind of go through what I wrote here. Is basically I went through the rules section of the codexes that I mentioned earlier, and laid out what all I would need to use these guys in a game. And so they've got their own detachment abilities. They've got their own stuff that they can do. Kind of like a Space Marine, you pick a chapter, or a Necrons, you pick a dynasty, or the Drakari, you pick the Witch Coven or whatever. Like or the Canipal or Manipal or Municipal or whatever, the AdMech, I don't remember what they are, but how you basically pick a narrative chunk that they come from in order to give them their abilities and kind of flavor the Force. It's no different with the squats. You pick your Stronghold fleet you come from, which there are 5, I believe, maybe 6. I'd have to read them off. And each one has kind of their own little special power and benefit that they give. But one of the things that the squats have been known for forever is their ability to hold a grudge. Is their ability that they do not forgive. They do not forget. They might set it aside and go, we'll argue again about this some other day. But until it's solved, until it's been buried, it's still there. It is still part of that bloodline's glorious honor. Like it is what it is. And so basically, models that have the keyword of the keyword with the ancestral grudge ability, they have a particular bonus that you get to choose based off of your grudge, which we'll get into that, and we'll get down into that in a minute. And then, just like all the rest of the new codexes, there's an order of command that I think is just a really good addition for Ninth Ed. Is the captain does not benefit from the lieutenants, who does not benefit from the sergeant's special abilities. That sort of thing. Please pardon the dogs that are outside. I can't stop them from barking. I hope that doesn't bother you guys, but my neighbor's dogs are insane. Your warlord sets the top rank, and basically it kind of goes down based off of what kind of characters you take. Some people they simply will not listen to the orders from on high. But yeah, let's go through the different strongholds. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 known strongholds. So I know there's like 50, more like 10. Actually, I think there's 13 listed Space Marine chapters, and then they've added like 7 more or whatever that all have their own special rules and everything. And there's like 7 dynasties for the Necrons or whatever. Again, I didn't want this book to be OP. I just wanted it to be fun and have some variation. So it's got 5 strongholds in it. All of these strongholds have been researched based off of either writings from 40k, little lore blurbs that have shown up in other books, even down to the original Adeptus Titanicus board game, or epic style miniatures game. The old Space Marine battle, and even some of the entries in old epic 40k. I did a lot of research for this. So the first one is the Emberg. Their special stronghold trait is that they know no terror. They basically are the ones that their homeworld was the closest to the Maelstrom, which is like a tiny version of the Eye of Terror near the squat homeworlds. and they so they are really well versed at killing demons, and their psychers are um, particularly attuned to the warp, but it also, the drawback for them is they, because of their proximity to warp energies and things, should something go badly for them, should they suffer a perils, they take extra wounds. So a perils for an Emberg Skiger is very bad. The next Stronghold fleet is Grindel. They are the Grindel are bikers. You know, they're the ones that they're known for their fast bikes, their loud choppers, and their assault tendency. Their tendencies to get up in it quick and hard and fast. That is what they're good at. Their bikers advance. Anybody with the biker keyword advances or charges slightly faster than their neighbors. And when they shoot while advancing, they're so used to shooting on the fly and shooting while they're moving so quick, they don't suffer the -1 penalty for shooting during an advance. And because of their mentality, the drawback for that stronghold is if they advance, they do not have a choice. They have to end their advance closer to the enemy than they started. Similar to like how your consolidation moves after a charge have to be closer to the enemy. This is like that, except it's during their advances. There is no tactical advancing unless that tactic is get up in their face. The Capillar, the Capillar tactic, let's try that again. The Capillar strongholds, they are the travelers. They're the ones that got furthest away from the homeworlds before they ever even got into the Stronghold fleets. The Capillars are the ones that that know the most about different. They know the most about different planets. They know the how to recognize traps and pitfalls, and weather systems and things. And what this does is that it means that they know the lay of the land on a planet long before they ever get into long before they ever get into the actual battle. And so what the Capillars get, if you choose them as a stronghold, they actually can add up to 3 infantry units in their strategic reserves without spending any command points to do so. So they get free strategic reserves to kind of show that they know they know how to make the most out of this battlefield. They also get a bonus to determine the first turn. It is not much. It's a little +1 to the die roll, but it does mean that they get the first turn slightly more often than others because they're ready. They know what they're doing. They know they've got that tactical advantage of, we set up our forces here, we grab shoot into here, we know what's going on, we'll wait until they move into this place and then spring our ambush. So if you're playing Capillar, you know that you have a possibility. You are more likely to get the first turn than your opponent. So you can build your army that way, or set your army up that way, expecting that to be a thing. Additionally, because they know how to make the most out of terrain, if a unit of Capillar are completely wholly within a piece of area terrain, they gain objective secured. They know the most on how to hold on to their turf when they've labeled something important. They know how to hold on to it. The drawback to this is the drawback to the Capillars is that should you include transports in your army, transports must be fully met. Like, you have to put everybody in a transport. Not as in you can't have infantry, but let's say that you bring 3 transports and each one's got 10 model capacity. You have to put 10 models in each one of those transports. They must fill their capacity in order to be deployed. That's the Capillars are always on the move, and if you are bringing transports to your in your army list, you will pack them full of dudes for the reserves, or for the deployment. You don't get a chance to set them up side by side. You are considered to be driving to the force or landing here or whatever. The next stronghold is the Norger. These are the artificers. These are the guys that actually from the home world. They originated in the home worlds closest to Sol, closest to Terra, closest to Mars, and they are the ones that had a very good working relationship with the AdMech, with the Adeptus Mechanicus, and helped them build some things. The Adeptus Mechanicus helped the Norger build some things for the Guild of Engineers, which is the AdMech for the squats. And the Norger are going to be your most techie stronghold. The unit in the first benefit for the Norger is any infantry in the Norger stronghold. Again, excuse my barking dogs. Sorry. I wish I could silence them, but I can't. If they have the infantry keyword and the ultra dense keyword, which we haven't actually gotten to that because we haven't gotten to the what some of the keyword benefits to the squats are, but basically ultra dense means that they can shrug mortal wounds and you can't wound them quite as easily on a die roll, not even based on their toughness. It's basically we're wrapped in a metal so dense and so thick that my toughness is irrelevant. You just really can't punch through it, and it's less of an armor save and more of I'm just a brick. The Norger have a lot of exo armored guys. They use a lot of tanks, and they use a lot of robots and things. So those are built better because the Norger have that kind of higher technology aspect in their stronghold. The other benefit they have is each time a model with a Stronghold Fleet trait makes a ranged attack with a bolt weapon. And now that bolt weapon that's bolt pistol, heavy bolter, twin link bolter, storm bolter, bolt rifle, bolt rail, any of the bolt weapons. If this Stronghold fleet is shooting them, they get an extra AP because they're the ones that helped the AdMech design how bolt rounds work, and that's really, if you're playing Norger, that's your bread and butter. You're gonna put as many bolters in your army as you can, because you're gonna take advantage of that extra armor pen. However, the drawback to being mostly robot and having a lot of bionics and having a lot of your science over you deep science over ancestral lore means that all Norger psychics are taken at a -1 penalty. That doesn't sound like much if you choose. I just won't take psychics. I just won't bring psychics. When we get into next week, when we go over the units. When we get into the units of the squats, a lot of their higher commander rank characters are psychers, which means if you're not utilizing those psychers and you've chosen to bring some of these tough guys along, you're wasting points, or you're endangering. You're going to be more likely to fail because of the negative for being a Norger. So that's the That's the drawback for being this ad mech style. You're just not as good as psychics. And then the last stronghold is kind of, I don't want to say it's the catch-all. It's like the Ultramarines of the squat strongholds. This is the largest and most influential of strongholds because it was created from all of the little strongholds that couldn't form their own ship. The stronghold of Thor, or Tor is honestly how it'd be pronounced. The stronghold of Tor was under the great high ancestor king. Like, he was the leader of all squats everywhere. He opened up his stronghold fleet and said, if you don't have a place, you can come aboard my ship. And so his ship became the collection of all, they are, he's that stronghold is revered amongst all others as like the highest and most noble. It is from the line of the High Kings, but it also benefited from the fact that it gathered all of these little dudes together to form form a stronghold that really is greater than the sum of its parts. So the benefit here is the infantry units in the stronghold, that they, as long as they're non-character units, they gain +1 leadership. They just have better morale. It's good to be in the king's, to be part of the High Ancestor King's lineage. Like being protected by the High Lord himself. There's a benefit there. Each time a model with the Stronghold fleet makes a ranged attack with a weapon that possesses the Blast trait, they get to add +1 to the number of attacks the weapon makes. So if you're throwing grenades or shooting mortars or things, you get to add 1 to this. They have a vast amount of resources, so they can kind of pack their munitions with a little extra bang for their buck. If you are using a super heavy auxiliary detachment under the Tor stronghold, it actually only costs you 2 CP instead of 3. They are known because, again, they gathered so many resources from so many people. They've got access to the most super heavy devices in all of the squat stronghold fleets. You still have to pay for the vehicles, and you still have to pay some command points for the extra auxiliary detachment, but it's 1 less. It's a little cheaper on you to have this the ability to take these gigantic monsters. Now, the drawback here, the drawback to the stronghold, to the Tor stronghold, is units with the stronghold fleet, they suffer an additional 1 for their combat attrition tests if they fail a morale test. Just while their leadership is higher, the morale is higher, they're excited to serve the High Lord under his banner, it is extra disheartening, extra dishonorable. You feel worse when you fail in the eyes of the High King, or in the High Ancestral Lord. So you basically you'll lose more guys to failing the combat attrition tests. Basically, that they're more likely to run and go hide in shame. If they've run, they plan to run and hide, not just they don't want to stick around and see to see the look on their brethren's faces of, oh, you cowards. So that is the strongholds that we have designed. I just realized this has already gone for an hour. Man, I could talk about these guys all day. I'm gonna bust through the grudges real quick. These are what you pick. You pick a grudge. You pick a grudge for your entire army. Now, this is a difference for some other armies that might have, like, well, I can pick this for this detachment, and this for this detachment, and this for this detachment. Even if I had like two different stronghold detachments, and I took some from here and some from here, and I was playing a giant army, the grudge that you're playing for is your entire army, no matter what. And the reason for this is because during the planning, when the different generals are getting together, of the different leaders of the different detachments, they're getting together and discussing what they're going to be doing, they look up a particular phrase from the logbook of grudges, the digital compiling of all of the different things that have made squats angry over the centuries, and they find the one that makes the most sense for them, and that is part of their battle oath. Basically, before they commit themselves to the battle, they point out that this is what makes us tick today. So it doesn't matter who you came from, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter which detachment you're from. If you're part of this battle, this particular canonical phrase is running through your head. Why you are angry, why you are a squat, why you are cranky at the moment. Now, you do have to choose this before deployment. This is important, because if you've got to choose it after deployment, some of these would be a little too easy to go, I'm playing against those guys, I'll take in this. So this is definitely something you choose before you deploy, before you see your opponent's list. You might be able to, depending on the army, you might know what your opponent can bring. Like, if I knew I was playing against Drakari, I'd be like, okay, cool. I know they've got a lot of skimmers, they got a lot of poison, they're fast, close combat's kind of a nightmare, but I wouldn't necessarily know what they're bringing. So here we go. We're gonna run through these real quick, and then we'll save the rest for a part 2 next week. Wow, I can't believe this is how excited I am for this. And I hope you guys are getting as excited while I'm telling you about this, because I know this is fan made. I know this is unofficial, and I know that people are going to, 40k hardliners are going to probably roll their eyes and be like, "Oh, squats." What I want to do is turn those guys into someone that goes, "Man, that sounds pretty cool. I wouldn't mind playing against that." That's what I want. All right. So the grudges. So the first grudge we have is a grudge against Eldari Pirates. There are thousands of Eldari pirates in the Grudge log who flew their thin ships in to prey upon squat colonies. Always be ready to turn your guns to the sky. This ancestral this ancestral grudge gives you +1 to hit models with the fly keyword. That's it. Your force has +1 to hit against fly. Baron Phoenix of Terra. Trade with this human and his cohorts taught us to watch for their treachery and be wary for their doublespeak and inevitable subterfuge. Never let your guard down. Squats with this ancestral grudge, reroll 1 miss whenever making ranged attacks against targets with the infantry and Imperium keywords. You're going to see where this is headed. Basically, all of these grudges, for the most part, are very specific moments. It's a cool benefit, being able to roll 1 miss against any infantry. Anytime my unit shoots, I get to reroll 1 miss against any infantry in the Imperium. Oh, that's pretty cool. The Cowardly Lords of Dargan. To run from one's duties is abhorrent, but when your cowardice costs the lives of thousands of your fellow squats, leadership of your entire stronghold is scrawled in the grudge log. So this is a grudge that's actually against a stronghold. There was a former stronghold, the Stronghold of Dargan, that is been written into the grudge log because they were filled with cowards. The squats with this ancestral grudge never suffer modifiers to their morale tests, aside from casualties taken. So when you make your morale test, you still roll, I lost 4 dudes, I rolled d6 + 4, but if there was flayed ones nearby where you suffer an extra -1, or there's some other fear effect or something like that where it's -2, or somebody hits you with a psychic ability that's -2 to your morale tests, that particular grudge eliminates all those extra minuses. It is always just roll a die, add the dudes that died. Gregny the Wasteful. Only once in the history of the homeworlds has a defending stronghold ever run out of munitions, falling to the Greenskin siege on all account of the man-damned surplus guild accountant, Gregny. You'll make every round count, and you'll never run out. So this is a grudge against a single squat accountant who screwed up the munitions, and a stronghold on one of the homeworlds fell to orcs because they ran out of bullets. The ranged attacks made by squats with this Ancestral Grudge and the infantry keywords, got to be infantry squats, may treat all weapons with the pistol or heavy trait as if they're rapid fire too. Now, that means that if you're in close combat with a pistol, you can't, you can't do your shooting close combat thing because you're specifically shooting rapid fire. But it does mean that when you're on your way into combat, you get extra shots, so that's nice. Maelstrom Spawn. So this is a grudge that is, which in this case makes some sense. The creatures that come out of the warp are never to be trusted, nor are those who dare listen to their two-faced promises. Spare them not a second thought, but rather a second round. Ranged attacks made by squats. With this Ancestral Grudge, the target models within 6 inches, so they gotta be close, that possess the Chaos keyword, wound on a 5 or better, or lower if applicable, regardless of how high the target's toughness. So this is an opportunity for you to, if those Chaos Spawn, those demons, or the Chaos Marines or whatever have gotten that close, they get within 6 inches, you get to wound them on 5s. Now, a lot of your weapons are going to wound on 4s and 5s anyway. A lot of your heavy weapons are going to wound on less. But this does mean that, like, if you get in a situation where you can unload pistol fire into, like, a Great Unclean One, or something like that, you're wounding on 5s instead of 6s. Like, that's a benefit. A grudge against the priests of Mars. We once had a grand relationship with the Adeptus Mechanicus, but their selfish priests and foolish iconophiliacs stole from us our secrets and claimed them as their own. You'll remind them just how much of their arms sprang from the guild fabrication. Squats with this Gilder keyword, or squats with the Gilder keyword, which there are some. When we get into the units, we'll discuss. There are some that work for the Guild of Engineers, so they have that keyword. Squats with the Gilder keyword and this Ancestral Grudge may reroll failed armor and invulnerable saves versus attacks made by units with the Imperium and or Adeptus Mechanicus keywords. So you get rerolls if your Gilders get rerolls against Imperial and AdMech. Quell the Unruled. Added to the grudge log for being the first Ancestor Lord to abandon their stronghold in an attempt to change tradition for selfish reasons. Quell is remembered so we can protect and respect our leaders. Basically, this is a grudge against a leader who tried to change the old ways. He tried to change the way things have always worked, and the squats don't like it. So they've written him into the grudge book. Squats with the character keyword and this Ancestral Grudge extend their application of the Lookout Sir rule to 6 inches. So instead of needing to be within 3 inches to not be shot at, you can be within 6 inches. Easy as that. Basically, your people are more likely to protect you if you are if they're remembering about how important the ancestors are and keeping the old ways alive. They're more likely to keep those who are loyal ancestors and such alive to do so. A grudge against roaring evils. There is a grudge log entry, one of the first, that places all beasts from the void and the wild and calls them all enemies of squat people. The beasts and devourers of the galaxy, they are not to be feared. They are to be eliminated. Attacks made by squats with this Ancestral Grudge that target models with the monster keyword increase their damage stat by 1. So this is a big grudge that could be unbelievably powerful depending on the army that you're going up against. It's obviously designed more focused to try and deal with Tyranids. But if you go up against Tyranids and it's a swarm army, Gene Stealers, Hormigons, things like that, this is going to do nothing for you. But it could be unbelievably useful against Carnifexes, things like that. The Unnamed Trader. This is a grudge against the unforgivable sin. To raise arms against your own kin and kind is what will put your name along countless others in the grudge log. only to be erased and then forgotten. Traitors are hated, never remembered. 1 unit of squats with the infantry or biker keyword and this ancestral grudge per battle round may fall back from being engaged and still be able to shoot and or manifest psychic powers. Basically, it allows you you get to choose 1 unit per turn if you're engaged to pull back and still shoot like regular. That's all it is. It is because it doesn't require a specific enemy. It looks like it's not as powerful as some of the other ones, but it doesn't require a specific target. It doesn't require a specific enemy. It's more of a general use. This is useful against everybody, as long as they get in close combat. And then the last grudge, one of my favorite, is the Why Eternal. The near constant threat of the orc menace has collected them as a species in the grudge log. Any squat, no matter how old or how young, must be ready to raise their weapons and stem the inevitable charge of a green tide, or others like it. Basically, this is the grudge that says orcs are the enemy all the time, forever. No matter where you find them, orcs are the enemy. Units of squats with the infantry keyword and this ancestral grudge may use the Fire Overwatch core stratagem multiple times per battle round at a cumulative CP cost per use. So basically, you can have a unit shoot, and I can play it again to do 2 shots. If obviously if they're already engaged, they can't. But like someone else charging in, the next time I can do 2 CP. They're gonna fire. There's one over here, 3 CP. They're gonna fire. So if you've got enough command points, you can try and maybe hold back the green horde from getting to you. That's the point of this thing. Now, mind you, it isn't just against orcs, so it's very useful against Tyranids. It's very useful against a close combat, Drakari army, but it is going to eat up your command points like nobody's business. All right, so at this point, this we've been going on pretty long. I don't want to go through. I'm not going to go through all of them because the whole point of this whole codex is for you guys to hopefully contact me or find it. If you want to get a copy, you can. I'll email you. You can be part of the playtest. You can be part of the spreading the squat love. But we are going to discuss that next week on part 2, where we will start. We will start quick. Get into the stratagems, get into the warlord traits, the psychic powers, and then once we get through that, I'm not gonna spend any time on the Crusade stuff. Although I did write it. I did write all of the Crusade information. So if you're a Crusade player, there's a whole section in there on how to play squats in Crusade. I told you I want this to be as official as possible. So next week, we'll go through the stratagems, we'll go through the warlord traits and the psychic powers, and then get into actually what some of these things actually are, like my heavy mole mortar here, the little squat guy in the back, or the termite torpedo launcher. So, I told you, I'm going crazy. I got some stuff. So I'm over the moon. I hope you guys are excited about this. I hope you spread this video to your 40k people, because next week we'll go into the units. Next week we'll go into more stuff. Because I'm not asking a dime for this, I want this to go as far and as viral and as crazy weird as possible. So tell your 40k friends, and after next week's episode, we will start spreading around the Stronghold Fleets, and we'll go from there. But until then, stay safe, wear a mask, enjoy yourselves, and play some games. We'll see you next week.